The Wealth of Some Nations. Chapter 11. The Native Labor Aristocracy. The nativist exclusion of highly exploited foreign workers from the centers of colonial and imperialist accumulation remains the absolute conditio sine qua non of metropolitan embourgeoisement, and the, quote, place premium that perfectly encapsulates the labor aristocracy's political economy. In the developed countries, native labor aristocracy, NLA status, is conferred by localized discrimination against ostensible non-nationals from the underdeveloped and oppressed populations. It is typically a product of capitalist and working-class initiative, collusion, and compromise. Nationalist and racist ideologies reproduce themselves in the consciousness and outlook of both workers and capitalists, to the extent that both groups receive economic rewards from their capacity to discriminate against, quote, foreign nationals. The failure of the labor movement to fight consistently and forcefully against xenophobia and racism is the outcome of the international segmentation and stratification of the labor market, rewarding class compromise between, quote, native workers and their employers. At the national level, labor-intensive competitive firms tend to support the inflow of immigrant labor so as to maintain relative overpopulation, labor market competition, and a fresh supply of labor power drawn from the, quote, industrial reserve army. At the same time, such firms may support discriminatory measures against foreign workers so as to artificially enlarge the supply of unskilled workers relative to skilled ones by preventing foreign workers from rising into the skilled category. The limited upward mobility of oppressed foreign workers results in the creation of a large pool of unskilled labor and exerts downward pressure on its remuneration. By assigning skilled and supervisory jobs to native, especially white, workers, a kind of caste hierarchy within the workforce is created, with employers reducing the chances of both sections of workers combining to force wage increases or an improvement in conditions. Large corporations, meanwhile, particularly those operating on the basis of capital-intensive production and employing greater quantities of skilled labor, may be less straightforwardly supportive of discrimination against foreign workers, since this may reduce the supply of skilled labor and create inefficiencies in the use of human resources. Indeed, anti-discriminatory policy may render skilled foreign labor competitive with skilled domestic labor, thus lowering wage costs. However, the restriction of labor market mobility on the basis of nationality may benefit skilled native workers, insofar as they can improve their employment and wage prospects if they can insulate themselves from foreign labor competition for the, quote, best jobs. The essence of NLA privilege may be observed insofar as it is not the metropolitan working class facing hostility and discrimination on the part of native metropolitan workers competing for scarce jobs, for the simple reason that north-to-south labor movement in search of better-paying jobs is a very minor aspect of global migration flows. Where it occurs, it is usually to obtain individual employment in sectors wherein there is little competition from native workers, for example in the state and private security sectors. Therefore, in the developed countries, the nativism of the working class has the distinctive feature of being an attempt to preserve the bourgeois status of metropolitan labor within the imperialist class structure. This accounts both for its extensive virulence and for its huge political cachet. To maintain itself economically, capitalism must, 1. Ensure the perpetual expansion of an industrial reserve army of labor, willing to work for low wages, and whose presence has a depressing effect upon wages tout court. At the same time, the political stability of capitalist rule presupposes, 2. A privileged layer of workers, a labor aristocracy, with a material stake in the system of private property. In the first case, the migration of workers from southern and eastern Europe and from the less developed countries of the global south to the countries of the global north as well as internal migration prompted by increased rural poverty within the less developed countries, acts as a means of expanding the inadequate, from the point of view of capital, reserve army of labor. This explains migration having become a fundamental structural requirement for metropolitan capital. Yet both economic necessity, especially market growth, and political virtue also dictate that the metropolitan bourgeoisie afford better labor market conditions and social status to native workers, thus giving them the consciousness of a labor aristocracy. And not only the consciousness of one. End of section.